Before the show starts, drop a comment below with where you're watching from, then sit back, relax, and get ready for some chilling stories. It was almost 11 p.m. when I pulled off the highway. I just dropped my mom off at her place after a long weekend visit, and I still had nearly an hour left before getting home. My gas tank was running low, and the last thing I wanted was to end up stranded in the middle of nowhere. The only open gas station was one of those older ones, dim lights, flickering sign, barely maintained. One pump was working. The convenience store behind the station had those big front windows that made everything inside look faded and forgotten. But it was open, and I was too tired to be picky. While the tank filled, I stepped inside to grab a bottle of water and maybe something sweet to keep me awake. The place was dead quiet. Just a guy behind the counter, mid-30s, reading something on his phone. I gave him a polite nod. He didn't even look up. There were two other men inside the store, one near the fridge in the back, the other pretending to check the candy aisle. I didn't think much of it at first. Just customers like me. But the way they glanced at each other, it wasn't casual. Their body language was tight, nervous. One of them reached behind his jacket, and I swear I saw something shiny clipped to his belt. I started walking toward the door. That's when the guy by the counter stood up abruptly and pressed something under the register. A loud click echoed across the store. I froze. The front door locked. Then the guy from the candy aisle turned around, pulled a small handgun from under his hoodie, and shouted, "Nobody move." My heart stopped. They weren't there for a few bucks and a bag of chips. This was planned, and I had just walked right into the middle of it. I ducked down behind a tall rack of potato chips, heart racing, trying to make myself small. I didn't dare move, barely breathed. Through the gaps between the shelves, I saw them shouting at the clerk. He wasn't just some random employee. One of them called him Jared and said, "You know why we're here. Open the back." So this wasn't about robbing the register. It was personal. I reached for my phone slowly, hoping to send a message to 911. But the moment I unlocked the screen, a voice barked, "You, behind the snacks, stand up." They'd seen me. I got up, hands raised, trying not to cry. The guy with the gun approached and yelled for me to hand over the phone. I didn't. Instead, I dropped it into the open freezer next to me, praying the ice muffled the sound enough. He didn't see where it went. He grabbed me by the arm and pulled me toward the back room. I was tossed into a storage closet. No windows, just shelves and a heavy door. He muttered, "Stay here and keep quiet," and locked it from the outside. It was pitch black. I stood there, trying to keep it together, hands shaking, wondering what the hell I had just gotten myself into. Then it hit me. My smartwatch. I still had it on. It had cellular, and it had voice control. I whispered as softly as I could, "Hey Siri, call 911. There was a beep. Then silence. The watch didn't respond, not out loud at least. I had no way of knowing if the call went through. I held my breath, counting the seconds in the dark, trying not to move or make a sound. Every now and then, I could hear yelling from the front of the store. One of the men was shouting about a key. Another kept demanding that Jared open something in the back. They weren't amateurs, but they weren't professionals either. They were panicking. After what felt like forever, the door opened again. It wasn't the guy with the gun this time. It was the younger one, thinner, twitchier. He looked at me like I was some kind of problem he didn't know what to do with. "Get up," he snapped. "We're changing plans." I acted like I was dizzy, even stumbled a little. "I think I passed out," I whispered. He rolled his eyes. "Whatever." He dragged me back out front. Jared was now kneeling by the register, one of the guys holding a gun to the back of his head. They had emptied half the shelves behind the counter. Boxes open, drawers pulled out, still looking for something. They weren't even watching me anymore. That's when I played my next card. "My boyfriend's outside," I said, voice shaky but loud enough for both of them to hear. "He's waiting in the car. If I don't come back soon, he'll call the cops." The room went silent. "You're lying," one of them said. "Try me." They exchanged looks, uncertain, for the first time. The twitchy guy looked toward the windows. "If someone's out there, they told me to call him. Right there. Put him on speaker." I nodded, slowly reaching for my smartwatch again. But instead of placing a call, I tapped the screen to hang up, ending the emergency call I'd already made minutes ago. 10 seconds later, the store filled with flashing lights. Red and blue. Sirens. Tires screeching. The guy closest to the door panicked and ran. The other tried to grab me, but I ducked behind the counter as the front glass shattered and the police burst in. It was chaos. Screams. Commands. Gunshots into the air. And then it was over. Both men were arrested. No one else got hurt. Jared was taken in for questioning. Turns out he'd been involved in something shady, which is why those guys were after him. Something about stolen merchandise and a double cross gone bad. I gave my full statement. Took hours. The cops later told me my 911 call had been cut off, but the system still pinged my location. They were already nearby when they traced the signal to the store. They said I got lucky, but I don't think it was luck. I think it was instinct, and a little bit of acting. I don't stop at isolated gas stations anymore. Not alone, not at night. And I definitely don't let anyone see me with my phone out. I haven't slept right in years. It started with stress, then turned into something worse, full-on insomnia. The kind where your mind races and your body feels like it's running on fumes, but your eyes refuse to close. I tried everything. Over-the-counter pills, prescription meds, melatonin, white noise, sleep hygiene, yoga. Nothing worked. A friend, well, more of an acquaintance, mentioned this guy she'd seen when nothing else helped her. He's not a traditional therapist, she said, but he gets results. That should have been a red flag. But when you're desperate, red flags start looking like lifelines. His name was Dr. Kale. No last name, apparently. His office was in an old building downtown, in one of those weird back alley units with no signage. The only way to book an appointment was through a number she gave me. No website, no listings. I called, and a man answered immediately. His voice was calm, steady, almost rehearsed. He told me he had one opening that week, Thursday at 9 p.m. Late, but I didn't care. I showed up 10 minutes early. The building was almost empty, aside from a dusty stairwell and the soft buzz of a vending machine downstairs. The hallway to his office smelled like old paper and cleaning fluid. The door said nothing, just a frosted glass panel and a dark wooden frame. He opened it before I knocked. Dr. Kale looked ordinary, maybe in his late 50s, clean-shaven, pale, almost clinical. He didn't shake my hand, just motioned for me to come in and sit. The room was dim. Soft yellow lighting, thick curtains, and a strange humming sound playing low in the background. Not music, more like static or some kind of frequency. There was no couch, just a padded recliner and a leather chair. We didn't talk much. He asked basic questions, how long I'd been having trouble sleeping, what I'd tried before. Then he handed me a small vial of something and told me to breathe it in deeply. Natural, he said. It'll relax your mind. I hesitated, but I did it. I remember leaning back. I remember the hum growing louder. And then nothing. I woke up in my bed the next morning. At first, I thought I'd just blacked out from exhaustion. But I checked my phone. It was 7:12 a.m. I had no memory of driving home. My car keys were in their usual spot. My wallet was untouched. Everything seemed normal, except for that blank space in my mind where the last few hours should have been. Still, that night I slept. For the first time in years, I actually slept. So I went back, week after week. Same routine. I'd show up, breathe in whatever he gave me, recline in the chair, and wake up the next day at home. Always groggy but more rested. Always foggy but functioning. Until the 6th session. That time, when I got home, I noticed something odd. My bedroom lamp was on. I never leave it on. And my phone, plugged in, screen up, had a voice memo recording still running. I hit stop. My voice played back. Muffled, slurred. Don't wanna, it's not mine, why are they watching me? I had no memory of saying any of it. I replayed the recording again and again, trying to figure out when I'd said those things. It didn't sound like sleep talking. It sounded like I was trying to argue with someone, maybe him. The timestamp said it started a few minutes after I should have left his office. That's when I realized something chilling. The recording hadn't started by accident. I had said it. Some part of me, even sedated, had tried to document what was happening. The next day, I called the number I used to book appointments. Disconnected. I tried calling from a different phone. Same thing. I went back to the building that night at the same time as usual. The hallway was dark. The door was still there, but the office behind it was empty. Completely stripped. No chair, no desk, no lights, not even the strange hum. It looked like no one had been there for weeks. But I know that's not true. I'd been there 4 days ago. That night, I started tearing through everything I could find. I googled Dr. Kale, tried every variation of the name. No license. No address. No records. Nothing. I even searched public directories for therapists in the entire state. Not a single hit. He didn't exist. I couldn't sleep again after that. Not because of the insomnia, but because I didn't want to sleep. Every time I tried, I felt like I was being watched. Not in the room, from inside my head. The voice memos started showing up again. Even when I didn't hit record. Snippets of audio I couldn't remember creating. My voice, but saying things I'd never say. One file was just me whispering their inside, over and over like a mantra. Another was just breathing, thick, wet, ragged breathing that didn't even sound human. And then the emails started. Random addresses. Nonsense names. Always with audio files attached. No message in the body. Just attachments named things like Gregory02.mp3 or reclinerlog.wave. I played one. It was my voice again. But this time, I was answering questions. Calmly. Willingly. Talking about things I never told anyone. Things I'd barely even admitted to myself. I remember whispering. I never gave permission. And then from another voice, his voice, responding. You already did. I reported it anonymously. All of it. Sent the files, the address, everything to a local tip line, and wiped my hard drive. A week later, I went back one last time. The door was gone. Literally gone, replaced with a blank wall. I asked around. The landlord told me no one had rented that unit in over a decade. Said the last time someone tried to use that space, the floor collapsed. Unsafe. Condemned. I moved states 2 months later. But every now and then, in the dead of night, I get a message. Not a call, not a text, just a ping. A new recording. From my own voice. Talking about things I never said. And always ending the same way. Sleep now. I've worked in HR for over a decade. People think it's all paperwork and interviews, but you learn things in this job. How to read body language, how to detect tension before it turns into conflict. It's instinct now. A quiet hum in the back of my mind that tells me when something's off. And something was definitely off with Tom. He joined our company about 3 months ago as a back-end developer. Good resume, glowing references, clean background check. He didn't say much in meetings, never really joined the lunch crowd. Quiet types are common in tech, so I didn't think much of it. But I noticed early on how he always seemed to know more than he should. He once commented on the route I took home, even though I'd never mentioned it. Another time, he made a joke referencing my dog's name. Again, something I'd never talked about at work. When I asked him how he knew, he just smiled and said, "You'd be surprised what people post online." I checked my socials that night. Nothing about my dog. No public posts. My privacy settings were tight. That's when the unease started. One Monday morning, I found my office door slightly open. I always lock it on Fridays. Inside, everything looked fine, except for a small sticky note on my keyboard with a smiley face drawn on it. I assumed it was someone being playful, maybe even from the cleaning crew. Until I found my spare house key missing from the tiny emergency pouch I kept hidden in my desk drawer. I didn't report it. I wasn't sure who to report it to. 2 weeks later, I opened my sock drawer at home and found a USB stick that I knew wasn't mine. I plugged it into an old, offline laptop just to be safe. Inside were screenshots, dozens of them, of emails I'd written, Slack conversations, even personal messages to friends from my phone. Messages I'd never sent from work, which meant someone had access to my accounts. To everything. I checked login activity. One IP address kept popping up, always during work hours, always matching the company network. I brought it to IT. They said they'd look into it, but I could tell they didn't take it seriously. I asked if they could tell who had used that IP at those times. They told me it was part of a shared range. Could have been anyone. But I knew. I started watching Tom more closely. He never made eye contact. He was always the last to leave. And sometimes, when I came into the office early, I'd find his computer unlocked, with windows minimized like someone didn't want me to see what they were doing. Then one night, I got an email from myself. Subject line, "Let's see what they believe." Attached, a draft resignation letter I hadn't written, addressed to the CEO, filled with erratic language, as if I were having a breakdown. I sat there staring at the screen, my hands cold. That resignation letter, it sounded like me but unhinged. It was clever too, subtle enough to be believable, just off enough to raise concern. I checked the metadata. It had been created from my work laptop. At 3:17 a.m. I hadn't even been home that night. I'd spent it at my sister's after dinner and didn't return until morning. I knew then this wasn't about messing with my head anymore. It was sabotage. I confronted IT again the next day, but they just gave me corporate shrugs and policy speak. "We're still investigating," they said. "If you suspect foul play, contact the proper channels." Whatever that meant. So I started digging myself. I still had the contact info of a woman named Elise, someone I'd met briefly during a conference a year ago. She worked in HR at a firm across the state. I remembered the name of her company because it had popped up on Tom's resume. I emailed her late that night and asked one simple question. "Did Tom ever cause you problems?" She replied the next morning. Her message was short. "You need to call me. Now." I did. What she told me made my blood run cold. He'd been let go from her company after 2 months, but not for performance reasons. There'd been strange incidents, employee accounts compromised, private photos leaked. One person even had a full conversation transcript with their therapist emailed to the whole office. They could never prove it was Tom, but everything stopped the moment he left. She'd kept quiet. Legal told her not to escalate, but she'd always had a gut feeling it was him. Now it was happening again. Only this time I had evidence. With Elisa's help, we gathered what we could, corroborating patterns, timestamps, login logs, screenshots, and even an audio file. One night I'd accidentally left my office mic on during a video meeting. The next day, I found that recording saved with a different file name, watchinger.wave. When I played it, I heard breathing. Not mine. Someone was in the office during the call, staying just out of frame. I sent everything to a contact in cybersecurity enforcement. They launched an investigation. It didn't take long. Tom was arrested 2 weeks later. His personal hard drives contained files on at least 8 employees, not just from our company, but from 3 others he had worked at. He had collected login credentials, cloud backups, voice recordings, photos, even manipulated documents. In some cases, he'd used that information to blackmail or coerce. It was more than digital harassment. It was orchestration, the kind of crime that makes people disappear quietly, not physically but professionally. He's behind bars now. I never heard from him again. But sometimes when I open my inbox and see an attachment, my chest tightens. Every password I use is a sentence now. Every update a shield. I left HR not long after and got certified in cybersecurity. It's not about firewalls and passwords anymore. It's about understanding how close the threat really is.